Welcome to the Shopify Happy Hour. On this show, you'll hear from Shopify founders, operators, and growth experts sharing marketing strategies, lessons from the trenches, and real e-commerce insights, all over a different drink each episode. Today's guest is David Wachs, founder and CEO of Handwrytten, a Shopify integrated platform helping brands automate one of the oldest forms of marketing, handwritten notes. Handwrytten enables businesses to send real pen and ink cards at scale, giving e-commerce brands a way to build stronger customer relationships through thoughtful, personalized outreach. After more than 20 years in marketing, David has built a business around a simple idea. In an increasingly automated world, genuine human connection is becoming one of the biggest competitive advantages. David, welcome to the Shopify Happy Hour.
Thank you so much for having me on, Dan. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. Let's kick it off. What are you drinking over there, good sir?
I am drinking a Black Rifle coffee. It's called the Smoky Joe. And it's an interesting, they've, instead of going the ultra high-end route, they're going for gun-toting military guys and ex-military guys, which I am not, but it happens to be good, strong coffee, and it's near my house. So it's got that going for it. And I certainly support first responders. So it's nice that they give back.
Fantastic. Checks lots of boxes. So first responders and military, but also strong and close to the house. Those are two very important things.
And differentiated. It's an interesting marketing versus going the same route everybody else is. They've gone a completely different tactic. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And it's always great when a brand comes into a crowded category and goes after a niche audience and speaks to them very well and then grows based on that. So super cool. Well, I've got some coffee as well. So it's right now in North Carolina. It is what I like to call the jungle season. It's like 100 degrees every day, insanely humid. You can't walk outside without your glasses fogging up. So I've got some cold brew from Charleston Coffee Roasters. Actually get it at Costco. It's just like a big old bag of really good coffee that's perfect for cold brew. So cheers to you, good sir. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers to you. Thank you.
All right. Well, now that we are getting sufficiently caffeinated, I'm on probably my fourth cup for the day. Let's get into some marketing stuff. Would love to kind of walk through the journey with Handwrytten. So thinking back to the early days, what inspired you to build it? Why'd you build Handwrytten?
It actually goes back further than Handwrytten, and I think it's important to kind of quickly run through this. Prior to Handwrytten, I started a text messaging company in 2004. So this is before the days of the iPhone. We were initially sending text messages about homes. So you'd drive by a house, you'd want info on the house, there'd be an empty flyer box. There was no Zillow at that point. So you would see a sign hanging from the sign called a writer to the sign, and it would say text home to 30364, whatever the unique part was to the number 30364. You would do that, you'd get back on your little flip phone, your Motorola Flip, you get photos of the home, price of the home, contact the realtor. To date ourselves, you'd get a option to reply with your fax number to get faxed more information, which is very useful. And then the realtor would get a lead. So that business, which was called Sell It, quickly pivoted away from real estate because dealing with realtors can be a challenge. And we worked with large brands. So Marie Claire magazine, for instance, used basically the same system for information on products in their magazine. Apartmentsforrent.com used us for apartment information. And then we moved to general messaging. So Abercrombie and Fitch, Toys R Us, Sam's Club, Office Max, Blue Man Group, all of Broadway, the Circus. We had a Chicago Tribune. We had a number of clients that used us for messaging. And while the text messages worked, which they absolutely did, back in 2012, I was very concerned that people would just get fatigued by all the overwhelming numbers of text messages on top of, at the time, Twitter, Slack was just coming out, etc., and certainly email. The average person receives about 135 emails a day. They have to spend 24% of their time in the office just managing their inbox. This was back in 2012. So I thought, if we step away from electronic communication, I thought the least used inbox was the one at the end of their driveway. So that's why I got into handwritten notes. And it really started with me wanting to send handwritten notes to my employees and my customers because I sold the text messaging business and I wanted to thank my employees and customers for being with me during that, I hate to use the term, but journey. So I had to work for the new owners of that company through 2014. And then the next day I turned around and started Handwrytten. So for the past 12 years, we've grown into the largest provider of automated handwritten notes in the world. We use 200 robots located here in Tempe, Arizona. These robots hold real pens. They write out notes in long form. We then automatically QA them with machine vision systems we built, like actual AI. They're inserted in envelopes. The envelope is written in real pen too, which is quite frankly the most important part because people tend to open handwritten envelopes, and then we put a stamp on it and mail it. So that's kind of our business. We do it about 30,000 times a day, and for hundreds of thousands of clients, maybe, you know, five five to 10,000 active clients at any given time. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. And what we find is that it's universally applicable. So certainly used by e-com brands and big box retailers. We have department store chains, eyeglass chains on the big box store side. We have a number of smaller e-com brands, especially subscription boxes, using us on the Shopify side. But then it's used by piano tuners to veterinarian clinics that put down animals, nonprofits, and all the rest.
I love the breadth of use cases there. And I got to say, I've been a client and customer for years and think it's,
Yeah.
fantastic. My handwriting is pretty awful in real life. So using digital robots has been a bit of a lifesaver. So I can
Yeah.
attest to it being fantastic software, and people really love receiving the handwritten cards. So question for you, so I know you mentioned that you have robots that are writing about 30,000, you said, letters per day, and they're using pens. Can you talk more about the pens? Like, these aren't just big pens they're using, right? Like, what does that look like?
Actually, they pretty much are. They're Pilot G2 ballpoint pens. So the Pilot pen you could pick up at any Walgreens or Office Max. They're put in our robots, which are obviously special, and we have 180 of those in the facility. We have a couple more in other locations throughout the country, and then we have a number of other robots. But the key robot around here is the writing robot. Those robots can write in one of 200 plus handwriting styles. There's about 35 available for anybody off the website to choose, or through the Shopify app or whatever. And then people come to us, whether they're a celebrity or just a person that really wants their own handwriting style, and we'll create it for them. And then those are private styles. Once we create that private style, it can be written by any robot. And then we can also do like signatures, which are way cheaper than full handwriting styles because it's like creating one glyph of your signature. Or we have a number of doodles now, which you might not be aware of, Dan. So you can actually go on handwritten.com and have it draw a little picture for you of like a heart or a house or whatever the holiday is, a turkey or a skull and bones for Halloween, whatever that is. It can draw that on your note too. So it's getting pretty cute in that regard. But yeah, it is just a regular Pilot G2 ballpoint pen. It's funny you say that. I actually on my desk have this box of a very heavy box of brass pen holders, because in our early days we used to require that the robot hold the pen in a very heavy pen casing because they would have to press down for the robot. But now the robots do the pressing themselves. So I don't know why we just bought a bunch of expensive brass pens. I think it's just kind of, they're awesome pens. So I don't know. We give them out as gifts more than anything now. But yeah, so we have those machines. We've got the QA machines. We have a very large industrial envelope stuffing machine. We are talking about, actually, like, I just got out of a meeting where we're talking about humanoid robots to carry the partially completed letters between stations. So taking it from a robot and putting it on a QA machine. Maybe we'll have a humanoid robot do that, because you can actually buy some cheap ones from China relatively inexpensively. I don't know if they're any good or not, but I thought it would be fun to try. So yeah, we've got all that. And then on top of the writing, we also operate our own 3 print presses. So if you want a custom card with your logo on it or a photo of your product, we print that at full bleed on nice, thick, luxurious stock, and we will cut it down to size so it's full bleed and then write on that. And there's no additional cost for printing those cards. You could do it in quantity 1. like one of the new features we have for automotive dealers, and I know it's not really applicable here, is we will take a picture of the person standing in front of their new car and then write a card to them saying, we're so glad we were able to help you with your car purchase. And that's a fully automated process. So they just scan the VIN of the car, they take a photo, and then the rest kind of happens. So there's some pretty cool stuff happening here at Handwrytten.
I love that you are, the business is all about how to automate something that is personalized and blend
Yeah,
them both. Blend the human element, something that is hard to scale with technology that can be
yeah.
much more scalable. And sounds like your entire process flow is literally doing that because you've got robots doing the work with actual pens. I didn't think you'd be using actual pens, but that's fantastic. So I'm kind of stuck on this pen thing. So how many pens do you go through every day or every week? I imagine that's going to be a pretty heavy cost for you.
Yeah, we buy the ballpoints. So Pilot actually knows us. They actually used us last year, the year before, for a whole Christmas campaign because they're aware of us and we're like, oh, this is cool. We'll work with our pen supplier. We don't buy directly from them. We buy from some bulk office supply store thing, and we buy the pens in quantities of like some random quantity. It's like 187. I don't understand why. And we're not buying the pens. At this point, we're just buying the inserts. We just use, the little tubes that come in the pen. And each one lasts us, I think, a solid 2 days per robot. We actually keep one of the things we did early on is we started tracking pen mileage. So we know how long that pen's been writing, and then we tell the operator to swap out the pen after a certain amount of writing. So it's not like we've got a light sensor on that pen shining through to see the ink levels. Although we could do that, I guess. But our approach is purely software based. It's just keeping track of mileage. So yeah, we buy these pens. Each box is like 200 pens in it. We buy 10 boxes at a time and we pound through them. I would say each pen lasts like one to 3 days, depending on if it's writing letters or if it's writing cards.
Pen mileage. I love that term.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's literally just how long that pen's been down rolling.
Awesome. Okay, so at this point, you've got an army of robots. You've got tons of clients. You're obviously way past that product market fit stage where you are at scale writing tons of handwritten notes per day. So it's 2026. You mentioned you started 2014. Is that right?
2014, yeah.
2014. So let's go back to those early days before you had this army of robots and all
Yeah.
these clients and all these different use cases. Why don't you take me back to how did you land your first customers? How did you prove there was demand? And how did you start operationalizing at that point?
So back then, with the previous company, with Sell It, the texting company, I started that out of duress. I got fired from a company. That job's best told over beers, or that story's best told over beers. When I sold Sell It, I did pretty good. I did fine. So at that, I was no longer the programmer, and I hired initially some programmers to design the iPhone app first, not the web app. And the reason at the time I did it, and things have changed now, it's been 12 years, but I wanted what's called a separation of concerns, which means when I designed the web app for my last company, the code for the design of the web app and the code for the logic of the web app were like completely mixed. There was no separation of logic and design. And because of that, it was very hard to separate decouple the two to create the Sell It iPhone app or the Sell It. Ironically, we wouldn't need to Sell It. Well, I guess you could Sell It iPhone app or whatever, the Sell It voice app or whatever we wanted to do, or the Sell It Zapier, whatever that was. With Handwrytten, I wanted to be API focused to start with. So instead of designing the website, I said, let's design the iPhone app. The iPhone app will use APIs. Those APIs could then be repurposed for the web app or for the Android app or Zapier or whatever else. So that's what we did. So we did a full separation of concerns at the beginning, and that's what the developers did. How did I get my first clients? Honestly, it was just Google ads, and it was a slow burn. Luckily, I wasn't under the financial stress I was with the first company. That too was with the first company, I had people pounding phone calls, and I got a restaurant and was very excited with that, a restaurant out of New York. and it kind of grew from there. With this one, it was just online, people signing up online and using it, and it worked pretty well from the beginning. It has not been a rocket ship those 12 years, I got to tell you. It's been more of a Toyota Camry. It's been kind of taken off slowly but surely. But yeah, that's kind of how we did it. Now that we have a presence, we are very much SE, search engine marketing based, SEO, not really. I'm sorry, we're very search engine optimized, not very search engine marketing, although we are bringing back search engine marketing. When we're doing search engine marketing right now, we are very attuned to the attribution, because if you don't know what you're doing, you could spend your out, you could go bankrupt spending it on Google ads and everything else. In fact, we just canceled our Instagram ads. I was excited to try Instagram, but it's too expensive at $80 a lead. So we are now back to just Google and SEO. But that's kind of been our strategy all along. And then kind of getting back to the initial idea of making sending handwritten notes as easy or easier than sending an email, it's all about the APIs. So we are in Zapier. We are in make.com, if you're familiar with Make. We are Shopify. You could pick us up out of the Shopify store. We're in the App Exchange for Salesforce and the HubSpot marketplace. We're in the Blackbaud, which is a nonprofit CRM system. We're in their marketplace too. So we try to be everywhere our customers are and don't depend on them to use our website. And that's given us some marketing visibility as well. I mean, there's a couple places we need to be that I haven't figured out how to get there yet, but we're working on it. So that's what we do.
It's a super interesting marketing strategy because the product or service, I think what you're doing kind of blends both.
Yeah.
It is very innovative, but you are it seems like you're capturing demand that's already there for a product or service that's existing, which is interesting, where typically, the way I look at a lot of marketing is you're either creating demand or capturing demand. Yes, there's some blend of both, but Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, this very visual, short form video life cycle we're in right now with marketing is very much about showcasing products and creating demand for something that wasn't around before. And then you've got search, right? Which is great for apparel and food and stuff and auto and people that, and products and services that people already know they need. And now they're lower down the funnel and they are actively searching for which product they want to purchase. So it's interesting because you've got this innovative product/service, but you're really extending across all these platforms to capture demand that's there, using SEO to capture demand, using SEM to capture demand.
Yeah.
So you're kind of extending everywhere. Back in the early days, what would people typically search for to find you in order to convert? What does that look like?
Just handwritten notes. That's handwritten note service. I mean, it's pretty straight up. And that's why I think we've been a Camry, not a rocket ship, is with this business, it's a very hard business, but with this business, people don't know that this is an option. They know they need to send handwritten notes. They assume they have to sit down and do it themselves, or they don't need to know they need to send handwritten notes. They never think of us. So capturing demand for those very few people that actually want to use it is fairly straightforward. It's the boiling the ocean part, the rest of the process, that's very difficult. And we do use Instagram and Facebook and all the channels there on the posting side, but not on the advertising side anymore. It's too expensive. So every day you'll see another video of either me or the robots on my account, getting pushed out to the ether. And it's hilarious because any video that features my mug gets 10% of the videos of the views that any video that features the robot does. But hey, I'm used to it at this point. But yeah, we do a lot of that. I listen to Alex Hormozy, and we got to post every day, which we do. But posting ads, I don't know. I'd love your thoughts on it because I haven't been able to drive that cost down, the cost per lead, to a point where it really makes sense. I figure I can spend that money better elsewhere. So that's what we're doing. Now it's a lot about optimizing for AI. And luckily we're already the market leader. But that said, we're not sitting on our laurels and we're doing stuff. Obviously, like our G2 reviews help and all that, but there's other stuff we're doing just for AI too that I can't talk about.
Well, I wouldn't feel bad about not getting as much traction as your robots, because that's pretty hard to compete with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people see these things and it's, I guess it was to be expected when I started posting. I get a lot of rage comments and, I hate this. I get these all the time, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, we tend to get more quiet likes, meaning people will like the post than we do rage comments, which is good. But it's very divisive, and I understand it. But if I were to sit down with any of those people, and I should probably make some videos about this because that nobody will watch. But I would say, look, this isn't new. What we're doing is not new. Back in the 60s, 1960s, if you had a bad plane trip on TWA or Pan Am or whatever you were on at the time, and you wrote in a complaint, you'd get a letter back from the CEO signed by the CEO, saying, we're so sorry for your complaint. I'm willing to bet you that CEO did not sign that letter. He used an auto pen or his secretary wrote out that letter. If you donate to a nonprofit and you get a handwritten note back, I'm willing to bet you most of the time that note was not written by the head of development. It was written by an intern sitting in a room with a bunch of other interns or volunteers working for Greasy Pizza. And this, so what's the difference between somebody working for pizza and a robot that's able to do your note more consistently? Not identically, because we make sure there's variances, as you know, Dan, in every note, but it's more consistent, it's more reliable, it doesn't take smoke breaks, it doesn't screw up, and it doesn't drop pizza oil on the card itself. So there's a lot of benefits for using something like handwritten versus a room of nonprofit volunteers or your secretary or hiring people in India to do it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, to your point about rage comments, the way I look at that stuff is haters are going to hate, and it's good for the algorithm. So when we're creating content for brands, we're often looking to be polarizing, because content that some people will love and other people will hate is great for the algorithm. It's that sort of lukewarm middle. That's the stuff that doesn't work so well. So when people hate on social posts, it's usually a good thing, because it means you can get more views cheaper and get in front of more people. Yeah, some of those people are not going to be a fit, but for the ones who are, it's just more social proof when they do see that organic post or that paid ad. Yeah, and in terms of paid strategy, something you could test is just with all the organic content you're creating, boost or amplify the outperforming content. So if you're posting 30 times a month, take the top 5 or 10 that you're seeing, anything that outperforms. And then if you're looking to put some paid ad spend behind it, you'll have already have tested organically where you didn't have to waste that ad spend, and then you've already then you have some confidence that the post that you do amplify with paid will be better off than maybe
That's a great
boosting
idea.
something that was a little bit of a dud. That's an old Gary V hack, so that's not me, but we use it and it definitely works. Awesome. Okay, so you mentioned AI. We're talking about robots. In a world of AI, email, SMS, obviously you've got lots of background in all this automation. Why do handwritten notes still matter?
I think one, it's a volume play. Do you want to be in the stack of, 135 emails a day and a million texts and tweets and Slacks and Teams and all that? Or do you want to be the pile of 1 to 3 handwritten notes you receive a month? So there's that. But I think at a deeper level, what a handwritten note shows is a deeper investment in attention, personal attention, that people are starving for at this point. Everybody knows that all those emails you get, it could be the most personal email in the world. They will probably have a good gut feel that that was automated. They don't have that gut feel on a handwritten note. They think it's something you sat down, you took, as you know, if you actually sit down to try to do it, it takes like 3 to 5 minutes to do. And then you got to look up their address. You got to find a stamp. You got to go to the store, get the card. It's a whole process. So the fact that you took that time and you thought about somebody to sit down and write that note, that attention. It's not the personalization. You can get a personalized email. That handwritten note that you send could just say, thanks for being a customer. But at least you're sitting down and showing that personalized attention. And I think that personalized attention is really what people gravitate towards. Of course, if you throw some things in there, like Brittany Hodak, who wrote a book called Creating Superfans, she talks about in those notes, or if you have to do an email, talk about your story and your why and connect it to their story and their why. So if you sign up with handwritten and you spend a couple $1,000 with us, you'll get a handwritten note from me explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing and genuinely thanking them for their business. And it's funny, they know that note is handwritten with a Y, not handwritten with an I, and they will still thank us for those. So it's really just taking the moment out and sharing that personal attention. And if they do think it's fake, at least you did something better than sending an email, right? Speaking of SEO, about 4 years ago, I had an SEO firm contact me and they sent me this FedExed package. So I know the package alone cost $20 to send it to me. And inside was an electronic card that on the outside was their logo. On the inside was some corporate blather video that played. So you'd open it up, there's a little screen, and it would start playing this boring as hell video. I couldn't get through the video. It looked like I was having an orientation at IBM or something. It was so boring. But what it did though was it made me think, it made me realize they were trying to get my attention. They took the approach of sending me this thing that was very expensive. And when I got it, I thought, gee, they must be making bank on me. If they're willing to send me this thing, they have huge margins. And I'm a cheapskate and poor. I'm not going to pay the huge margins of this thing. Had they just sent me, and it was also wasteful. It's a lot of electronics with a battery that gets thrown away. And for me, because I'm an engineer and really an engine nerd, it's distracting because I looked at this thing and all I wanted to do was tear it apart and find the parts in it and see what made it tick, right? So had they just sent me a $3 handwritten note, not because I run handwritten, at least I would have read the thing, you know, versus getting this very expensive item that screamed high margin. It also screamed distracting, wasteful, not environmentally friendly, all the rest. I think a lot of people are trying to get your attention and they're looking for the next whiz bang gimmick. When sending a handwritten note, real or fake, at least it's showing you're doing something. And for those that realize it's fake, at least you're doing something different. But that said, I could hand you one of our notes, and unless I say, hey, was this note written by a robot, I don't think I think 99% of people would not guess it at all. They'd just say, oh, thanks very much for the handwritten note, including my wife, who is married to the robot, the guy that sends more handwritten notes than anybody in the world. And she gets notes from friends. She's like, wow, what lovely handwriting. So it's kind of funny.
That's amazing. And I love that reference. Well, I should say I like that reference that you mentioned about that company sending it to you because I believe I got the same thing. It's been a few years and I know exactly what you're talking about. It might have been a different company, but it was the same strategy where it was this like bulk envelope that was, I obviously opened it and I saw what was inside and I thought, very similar things where it was like, okay, I've never even heard of this company, but they clearly see me as a valued client for their services because they are investing so much in this thing. And as I was consuming it, I'm like, I'm actually not that interested in this. And they spent so much money to get in front of me. So I think, a challenge for marketers and operators, part of it is like, you just have to you got to get in front of the person, right? That's number one. You can have the best message in the world, but if it gets lost in email or if it gets lost in a banner ad, doesn't matter what you've said because nobody sees it. So the first thing is like, you have to capture that attention. You have to get in front of that person. But once you're there, once you've earned that right, you then have to fulfill on the promise of being there. And what's nice about a handwritten note is you can be very appreciative. You can express emotion where the person feels valued. I'm a big proponent of direct mail for e-commerce. Basically anything where when everybody else is zigging, you can zag. And direct mail is nice because, to your the stats you mentioned where people get, over 100 emails per day. Well, we're all getting tons of digital advertising every day, and it can work incredibly well. Like we run tons of Facebook and Google ads, and the stuff can work really well. But I always like when there are tools that can stand out from the crowd. And what you're doing is kind of a form of very personalized direct mail that gets into the inbox pretty inexpensively where it can be customizable. So shifting focus a little bit more on Shopify brands in particular, what have you seen? Because I know you've worked with lots of different Shopify brands for Handwrytten. What have you seen as the best strategies Shopify brands have used with personalized handwritten notes at scale using Handwrytten?
Yeah. So the first thing I'd like to caution is everybody looks for an immediate ROI on a handwritten note. and you're not going to get it. It's a long game. But what we use this for is gratitude. So within the Shopify plugin for Handwritten, you can set up after the first purchase or after X purchases or after they spend X amount, any of those thresholds, send a thank you note. And what I would do is what I call a full stop thank you, which is a term I coined, but whatever. It just means write a thank you. That's it. Don't say thank you and please go here and enter this code, or thank you and please refer us to a friend, and blah 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 blah. Anytime you do that, it's no longer a thank you, it's an ad. And you want to be very genuine in your thanking. What you could do, if you want to include an ad in that, is you're writing on a card. Why not have the back of the card have an ad or a coupon code or something on it, so it doesn't come across like you sat down to write that? You just wrote a kind note to the person explaining that you're a small business or medium-sized business and that you really appreciate them being a client. And if they have any questions, here's the number to reach out to. That's your note. But on the back of the card or on the top flap, you could have something printed that says, we appreciate our customers. Please, scan this QR or enter this code, whatever that is. So that's kind of our strategy for our customers. We also say handwritten notes are not a channel you want to saturate. This is 2 to 4 touch points a year. So this is after purchase thank you. That's typically first purchase, but again, it could be after a threshold. It's a birthday card. It's a holiday card, and then maybe one offer a year. So you're really reaching out 4 times a year. Then the second year, it's anniversary of purchase, birthday card, holiday card, offer. Those are kind of the cadences you get in. I don't think you should overdo it, but that's really it. So that's what we see that tends to work best. Some other examples, just for giggles, we have a snack box that works with us. They provide office snacks, and they have fallen into what's called the service recovery paradox. And the service recovery paradox is, if you screw up but provide a better customer experience, than if you over deliver on fixing that screw up, then you will win a customer for life. You actually build more loyalty than if you never screwed up in the first place. So that's the paradox. So what they do was, when they were screwing up with clients, they would send a follow-up box. That box would have an apologetic handwritten note in it. It would also have some swag and some other stuff in there. What they found is those customers had higher LTV than their overall customers. So just screw up with everybody, make up with everybody, and raise all tides. So that's what they do. If you don't want to do that, the alternative is have handwritten notes go out upon resolution of customer service requests. That is a tremendous strategy. So we work with a footwear brand doing that. So if you receive the wrong shoes, or they don't fit, or they were delayed, whatever that is, you will, from the CSR, will send a handwritten note. They'll just log into Handwritten and do it. And that goes out saying, we're so glad we were able to solve this. I'm so sorry for the initial issue. That transaction really becomes surprise and delight, because you assume that customer service rep one and done's you, right? Like they just move on. They're not thinking about you. But when somebody takes the time to think about you post event, it's like, wow. I had this happen to me personally. I bought a barbecue. Happy to mention the name of the company, Barbecue Guys. I bought the whole barbecue island, and some of the parts came banged and dented. So, and it took, these are heavy grill that had to be palleted to my house. I called them. They said, oh, we'll get you one the next day. Somehow they got me the parts the next day. And then 2 days later, I got a phone call from somebody saying, just making sure everything is good now. And I was just like, holy crap. You took the time to make a phone call. I was super impressed. So it doesn't have to be a handwritten note, but a handwritten note is certainly the cheap and easy way to do it, and automatable.
As you were talking about the snack box brand kind of intentionally screwing up a little bit, I couldn't help but think of a memory I haven't thought of in decades. But when I was a kid, I remember I wanted to go go to the circus. So for my birthday, my parents were asking me what I wanted. So I told them. And so they buy me tickets and I go to the circus. And I remember there was at one point where I forget what stunt it was. They were like on the tightrope and somebody like almost fell off. So everybody was like, you could hear a pin drop and then they had to
Yeah.
send somebody up to go get the person and they got him down. And as a kid, I was like, that was the craziest thing I ever saw. My aunt heard I wanted to go to the circus. So she also got me tickets. So like a week later, I go to the same circus. And wouldn't you know, that same exact person at that same exact moment, like almost fell to their death and they had to send somebody and I was so disappointed. I was just like,
Yeah.
there's something about being authentic and honesty. And I'm still a believer in that. Right. And so when you can come across and say, hey, we screwed up, but we will, we appreciate you as a customer and we will make this right. And here's what we did, or here's what we'll do. Like there's something powerful in that, but there is that balance of not making it too hokey where it's inauthentic. So I think that's the balance that brands have to strike, because I
Yeah.
remember being a kid and being so disappointed by that. But that's great. Okay, so it sounds like post-purchase as a thank you, some type of anniversary, VIP customer appreciation.
Yeah. Yeah. We work with a they're a houseware home brand, but they also do wedding dresses. And after somebody buys a wedding dress, they get, we're so excited to celebrate your wedding with you. Send us photos of you in the dress, blah, blah, blah. So we do all that too. Absolutely. Special event. And then on the opposite side, come to our special, invitation events for those types of things, whether they're online or in store.
Do you have a sense of what would you recommend for brand owners listening to this right now? Is there a specific profile? So it sounds like AOV has to be sufficient enough, or LTV has to be sufficient enough, where, you're not going to do it for let's say a D2C brand where it's a one-time purchase for $15 and maybe not they're much more transactional one time. This is more for building brand loyalty. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. But again, we were just at a retail trade show. I don't know if you go to Shop Talk or eTail or any of those. If you do, we'll grab a coffee next time. But we were giving out free handwritten cards, to these retailers, and they'd say, okay, well, for a test. And then they send out the handwritten notes. And then, a month later, they're like, yeah, we didn't get a return on it. This is a long game. A handwritten note is not like a postcard coupon. It's you're building a relationship where you become their durable brand that they go to. So, for example, and again, this isn't really a retailer example, but I think it's a good one. We work with a piano tuner in Pittsburgh. He's only in your home once a year. He tunes your piano, and then he sends you a handwritten note automatically. A year later, when he shows up at your home, a year later, because a piano only needs to be tuned once a year, he goes into your home. He often finds that handwritten note standing up on the piano. So not only was it opened and not only was it read, it is put on display on typically the most expensive thing in the home, an area that's reserved for graduation announcements and wedding photos or family photos. You cannot buy that real estate. So this is the special place handwritten notes have. It's not going to mean they're going to buy a second refrigerator a month later because you sent them a handwritten note. But a year later, when they go to buy whatever, an oven or a microwave, they will certainly think of you first. And that's kind of what it's about. So don't put this under a micro lens of ROI. You have to trust that the long-term LTV is there from these clients. But that said, yeah, I mean, if it's a $25 transaction with a higher acquisition price, I wouldn't try to get anything out of them if you never expect them to be a client again. But a lot of people are so focused on acquiring new clients. They've got all these great HubSpot dashboards or Shopify dashboards of new client growth. They're not tracking existing client LTV as much. And that's kind of the leaky bucket that you can really plug with a handwritten note.
Has there been any clients you're aware of that have used it as a referral strategy? Because I could see, let's take the wedding dress brand, where a year later or 2 years later, some type of where there's been enough room between touch points. We've really loved providing this experience for you, and I guess that wouldn't be the full stop. It would be sort of the if you know anybody who would appreciate our service, we'd love a referral. So but they serve different purposes, right? There is the pure appreciation brand loyalty play, but this also could be used as a little bit more direct response for brands. It's a fit where the offer makes sense and there's value. I think the balance is making sure the brand is not being too direct responsey or too salesy. and they're treating this as a relationship, as a friend, right? And every now and again, it's okay to ask your friend for something, but if every time you talk to your friend, you're asking them for something, that's going to get a little tired, right? So I think that's the challenge for brands, is just balancing both of those worlds.
Yeah, I just wouldn't lead with it. You're right. On the very first letter you send them or handwritten note you send them, don't do that. But after that, I totally agree. I think you can kind of build that trust and send them something after the fact for sure.
Love it. Love it. So obviously you're pretty tech forward. You've been using robots for years. You mentioned AIO, and you're obviously using lots of technology at Handwritten. What tech trends are you watching most in, let's say, e-commerce specifically and retail right now?
Right now, it's about attribution and making handwritten note attribution, as much as I think people are kind of missing missing the trees for the forest or whatever. We are adding attribution capabilities to the platform so you could easily tag back handwritten if somebody buys something. So that is going on. I think overall with this, preponderance of AI everywhere and AI emails everywhere and AI text everything, I think handwritten notes are just going to become more valuable. So we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. We are offering more personalization of the card itself. So, the very front of the card could say, on an angle across the card, "Hey Dan, we miss you at shop XYZ," but and that would be printed. So we are doing some more customization that way, but overall our value prop is kind of staying the same. And it's just providing the best of class handwriting personalization solutions out there. But yeah, the trends we're seeing, as I think everybody's purse strings get tightened, we are really working on attribution, both internally and then for our clients.
Fantastic. All right, so let's move on to the speed round. So each question, first answer that comes to your mind, about 30 seconds or less. What is one book that you recommend?
Well, I'd have to say Brittany Hodak's Creating Superfans. I think she's a really cool, interesting thinker in the space of customer experience. And, she certainly values the handwritten notes. I'd certainly say her.
What is one underrated Shopify app or piece of technology that brands should know about?
Well, certainly the handwritten app. We only have like 2 reviews, maybe. Yeah, that would be it. And then I think most people probably know to leverage tags as much as possible, but if you're a small owner and you don't leverage tags, one of the things we're currently adding to the Shopify handwritten app is the ability to tag people that have received handwritten notes. It's kind of valuable. It's like a mini Klaviyo.
Nice. What is an under the radar brand that you love?
Blueland. They do, and I wish it was cheaper. So instead of buying a thing of spray, kitchen cleaner or bathroom cleaner, or even soap, pump soap for your hands, they sell little tablets, and then they sell the pump, the empty glass pump. You put the tablet in the pump, you fill it with water, it fizzes up like an Alka-Seltzer, and then 30 minutes later you have soap or you have spray or whatever. So it's highly environmentally friendly. One of the issues with like these little tablets that you put in your dishwasher, the little packets, is that packet has microplastics. And you're also, the packets are also liquid, so you're transporting a bunch of water, even though it's just like this big. So with Blueland, they got rid of all the water. You add the water yourself. There's no microplastics. It is slightly cheaper than a bottle of soap, but you think you're just buying a little tablet this big. It could be cheaper. So they're really maximizing that. But I love the brand and what they stand for.
What is a favorite shopping experience, online or in person?
Well, I don't know if it's around anymore, but Stu Leonard's. Are you familiar with Stu Leonard's?
I'm a big fan of Stu Leonard's. When I'm back in that area, it is still around. There's at least 2, maybe 3 locations.
Yeah, so Stu Leonard's is where it's in the East Coast in New England. Basically, what it is it's a grocery store with one aisle, and you maze your way through that one aisle. So you have to go past every single product. And as you do, it's kind of like the combination of a grocery store and a Chuck E. Cheese. So there's like animated cows that sing and dance and moo and all the rest. So it really becomes a destination. There was a while, the reason I said I don't know if it's out of business is There was a while where the managers or the owners of Stu Leonard's were doing just a wee bit of tax evasion and they got sent to jail. But the product or the experience is tremendous. It's they've completely changed a grocery store and made it very much a destination.
I love that answer. So yeah, my experience with Stu Leonard's is very similar where it's one aisle and the food's good. They have good high quality products. It's a lot of kind of farm market feel, but then they have all these animated, like a giant animated Twinkie cowboy, Twinkie the kid who will talk to you. And they've got a giant cow where you press the button, it'll go moo, right in the milk aisle. So if you bring a kid there, they're just like loving it. And it's kind of blending entertainment with shopping. So that's a great one. You're the first person to mention that on this podcast. And that's a really fun shopping experience. Who is someone you would nominate for a future episode?
I'd certainly say Brittany Hodak. I think what she's doing is incredibly interesting in customer experience. So if you, I'm sure she'd be willing to come on your show too. So
fantastic. Where can people connect with you and learn more about Handwrytten?
So there's two places, certainly handwritten.com, and it's handwrytten.com, handwritten with a Y. If you go there and click business, you can request free samples and those so you can get a feel for the writing on your own. And then, feel free to sign up there. If you use the discount code podcast when you sign up, I believe you get enough for a free card to mail to somebody. Or you can connect with me on Instagram. It's a little tough. It's DBWACHS. So David B. Wachs, DBWACHS at DB Wachs on Instagram. And you'll get every day either a video of the robots or a video of me talking about the power of a handwritten note type deal.
David, thank you for joining us today and for sharing your perspective on bringing a more personal touch back to e-commerce and business in general. And thanks so much for sharing your story and insights with us today on the Shopify Happy Hour.